Yeah.
What's your
All I hear is music.
Yeah.
clue? All right.
Sure you.
All right. So let's just go down this real quick. We're doing clue. We got Wadsworth is going to be Nebish. Yvette is going to be Sam. Mrs. Ho is going to be Kono Frokost. Colonel Mustard is Tim, who is driving in a truck right now, so please be careful.
We don't have your video signal, Tim.
You're right.
That's fine.
I don't think we want to see it.
Mrs. White is Agnes. Professor Plum is Potchki. Ms. Scarlet is Slant. Mr. Green is Rob. Mrs. Peacock is Stephanie. Mr. Body is Rob. We have the motorist, cop, singing telegram, and evangelist. Evangelist.
Qualities.
We'll futz around with those minor characters as we get to them.
Perfect.
Rob, do you want to narrate, or you want me to skim through and narrate?
You skim through because I don't know what you want to pick and choose. I would just skip it all. So,
okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Potchki Clue. We bring you through the night methodically. Let's see, we're at a giant house. It's scary. Wadsworth steps up. There are dogs barking. He tells them to shut up and gives them bones. Yvette is inside. She's a French maid. She is young, beautiful, with a great figure and a maid's uniform, black dress, little white apron, and a cap. Sheer black stockings, dainty black shoes, perfect for Sean. But the skirt is shorter than normal and very tight over her bottom, and her black dress is very low cut. Her ample bosom is pushed right up. Wadsworth enters the library.
Is everything ready?
Oui, monsieur.
You have your instructions?
Wadsworth leaves the library and heads to the kitchen.
Everything all right, Mrs. Ho?
Dinner will be ready at 9:30.
The man's hand grasps holds the bell pull, and he pulls. Bell jerks and clangs. Door opens.
Good evening.
Man.
good evening. I don't know if...
Yes, indeed, sir. You are expected, Colonel.
All right, so who's doing Colonel Mustard? Am I now Colonel Mustard?
I'm good. Oh, wait. Are you Mustard now?
No, you're Mustard, but you're looking back and forth.
Oh, shoot.
Oliver!
Page 4.
Yes,
Page
indeed,
4.
you are expected, Colonel. May I take your coat? It is Colonel Mustard, isn't it?
No, that's not my name. It's Sean. I'm Colonel
forgive me,
Sean,
but
you asshat.
tonight you may well feel obliged to my employer for the use of a pseudonym.
Who are you?
I am Nebish, sir, the butler.
Yvette is pouring champagne at the drink table as Wadsworth and Colonel Mustard, aka Sean, enter.
Yvette, would you attend to the Colonel and give him anything he requires? Within reason, that is.
There's a ring at the doorbell. Wadsworth leaves.
Wadsworth, where'd he go?
Do come in, madam. You are expected.
Do you know who I am?
Only that you are to be known as Mrs. White.
It said so in the letter, but why?
She steps inside. Colonel Mustard is still looking for the door handle. Yvette is handing another drink to Colonel Mustard.
May I introduce you? Mrs. White, this is Yvette, the maid. I see you know each other. Are you all right, Colonel?
Realm of Thunder, a stunningly attractive woman whom we shall call Miss Scarlet, is bending over the open hood of her automobile. Up pulls a car next to her and lowers the window. What's the trouble?
My car.
What a lift. It's perfectly safe.
Yes, please. I'm late for a dinner date.
Me too. Where are you going?
You know this part of the world.
Nope.
Me neither. I'm going to the Hill House, off Route 41.
Wait a minute. Let me take a look at that. He takes the paper from her. That's where I'm going. I got a letter like this. Wadsworth is introducing Mrs. Peacock to Mrs. White and Colonel Mustard. Mrs. Peacock is a wealthy woman with jewels and fur.
And this is Mrs. Peacock.
How do you do?
Hello.
Yvette, would you please go and check that dinner will be ready just as soon as all the guests have arrived?
Yvette goes. Wadsworth too. Mrs. Peacock watches her go. Then Mrs. Peacock sniffs and surreptitiously checks her feet, then looks to at the other's feet.
What are you doing, Orange?
Oh, okay. 2 more cars are parked in the driveway. Mrs. Peacock and the car belongs to the dapper young man, tall, slim, bespectacled, and exquisitely turned out, who waits at the front door. Wadsworth opens the door.
Is this the right address to meet Mr. Body?
You must be Mr. Green.
Mr. Green nods anxiously. One of the 2 dogs is straining at the leash.
Sit! No, not you, sir.
Professor Plum is driving. Miss Scarlet is map reading.
It should be just along here.
Why is the car? Oh, that's you.
That's me. Why has the car stopped?
It's frightened. Another tremendous clap of thunder. It is as if the gods are angry with Hilltop House. Professor Plum restarts the engine, and as the car moves forward through the gates, the heavens open up. Colonel Mouse and Mrs. White and Miss Peacock are standing around with glasses of champagne. Yvette offers one to Mr. Green, who takes it. Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet are hurrying out of their car and up the front door. Amid the torrential downpour, they ring the doorbell and look about. What a God-forsaken place.
Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet, I didn't realize you were acquainted.
We weren't.
Colonel Mouse and Miss White, Miss Peacock, and Mr. Green are standing around nervously, not talking to each other, looking around at the great bookcase.
May I present Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet?
They nod. He takes a silver from Yvette and offers 2 glasses to Miss Scarlet and Professor Plum.
Of course, since you have each been addressed by a pseudonym, you will have realized that nobody here is being addressed by their real name.
They all glance nervously at each other. With renewed suspicion, suddenly there is a terrifying crash. Everyone jumps. Mr. Green's champagne shoots out of his glass and all over himself and Mrs. Peacock.
Ah, dinner.
Mr. Green is mopping up Mrs. Peacock.
I'm sorry, I'm a little accident prone.
And he leads everyone out of the library and across the hall. As they come into the hall, the cook vanishes into the kitchen. They all crowd in through the door and hesitate as they see the beautiful long mahogany table set as if there were a college feast. Silver, cutlery, wedges, china, all that good crap.
You will find your names beside your places. Please be seated.
They all sit down at the table in their specific spots.
Is this place for you?
Indeed, no, sir. I am merely a humble butler.
So what exactly do you do?
I buttle, sir.
Which means what?
The butler is head of the kitchen and dining room. I keep everything tidy, that's all.
I see. Well, what's this all about, Butler? This dinner party. Oh,
That's
sorry.
That's Miss Peacock.
Oops.
Eyes on the road!
Well, what is all of this about, Butler? This dinner party?
Ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do and die.
Die?
Merely quoting, sir, from Alfred Lord Tennyson.
I prefer Kipling myself. The female of the species is more deadly than the male.
The ladies all stare at him coldly.
Do you like Kipling, Miss Scarlet?
Sure, I'll eat anything. Oh, that's still me. Sorry.
Yvette has been going around the table.
Sorry.
with 2 bowls.
Shark's fin soup, madame?
Mrs. Peacock gets some. Then Miss Scarlet and Miss White, Plum, Mustard. Colonel Mustard indicates the elegant Chippendale upright armchair. Colonel Mustard?
So is this for our host?
No, sir, for the 7th guest, Mr. Body.
I thought Mr. Body was our host.
So did I.
Hi.
So, who is our host, Waddlesworth?
Wadsworth ignores the question, but is pouring the wine. Well, I'm going to start while it's still hot. He picks up a spoon and then sees that not everyone else has been served.
Shouldn't we wait for the other guest?
I will keep something warm for him. What did you have in mind, dear?
Professor Plum sees everyone has been served. He starts eating, so do the others. The slurping sounds of soup being eaten are as delicately as possible. Miss Doc.
Wow.
All heads turn towards her. She loses her nerve momentarily, then continues.
Somebody's got to break the ice, so it might as well be me. I mean, I'm used to being a hostess. It's part of my husband's work. And it's always difficult when a group of new friends meet together for the first time to get acquainted. So I'm perfectly prepared to start the ball rolling. I mean, I have absolutely no idea what we're doing here, or what I'm doing here with this plunger, or what this place is about, but I'm determined to enjoy myself and very intrigued. Oh my, this soup is delicious, isn't it?
You say you're used to being a hostess as part of your husband's work?
Yes, it's an integral part of your life when you're the wife of a, but then I forgot. We are not supposed to say who we really are we? Though, heavens to Betsy, I don't know why.
Don't you?
There's another silence. Mr. Green is staring at Mrs. Peacock.
I know who you are.
Aren't you going to tell us?
Mr. Green shrugs. It's not up to him to say, but Mrs. Peacock can't leave it alone.
How do you know who I am? That turned out really weird.
Peacock's line?
Mr. Green?
Oh, Mr. Green!
I don't hear anything.
You can't hear anything?
Now I hear it.
Now you hear it. Okay.
It totally went silent.
How do you know who I am?
I work in Washington too.
Washington? So you're a politician's wife?
Yes, I am.
They all stare at her.
Come on then, who's your husband?
The door opens suddenly. They all jump a little. Wadsworth comes in. He indicates to Yvette to come in and collect all the soup bowls. She does so in a tense silence and departs with Wadsworth, who closes the door behind him. Meanwhile, conversation continues.
And what does your husband do?
Nothing.
Nothing at all?
Well, he just lies around all day. He lies around on his back all day.
Sounds like hard work to me.
They all look at Miss Scarlet. Suddenly, a panel shoots up behind them. They all jump. Mr. Green spills food or wine over Miss Scarlet.
I'm sorry, I'm a little accident prone.
We see it as a hatch into the kitchen. Yvette is placing the main course in the hatch.
Excusez-moi.
In the background, distinctly, we see Cook dishing up food. Miss Peacock tastes it.
Mmm, delicious. This is one of my favorite recipes.
Wadsworth edges in front of the pass-through so that Mrs. Peacock cannot see the cook.
I know, madam.
She looks at him with further curiosity. Wadsworth starts to pour the wine, topping it off with 2 glasses.
So what do you do in Washington, D.C., Mr. Green?
Mr. Green smiles and shakes his head. Miss Peacock persists.
Come on, what do you do? How are we going to get acquainted if we can't say anything about ourselves?
Perhaps he doesn't want to get acquainted with you.
Well, I don't know, I'm sure. If I wasn't trying to keep the conversation going, we'd all be sitting here in an embarrassed silence.
Are you frightened of silence, Miss Peacock?
No. Why?
It just seems to me that you are. You seem to suffer from what we call pressure of speech.
We? Who's we? Are you
Professor
a
Plum
shrink?
hesitates.
Are you a shrink?
I do
Sorry.
know a little about psychology, medicine, yes.
You're a doctor?
I
Maybe
am.
you could fix my heart.
I am, but I don't practice.
But practice makes perfect. I think most men need a little practice, don't you, Mrs. Peacock?
Oh.
Mrs.
So what do
Peacock.
you do,
Oh, go ahead.
Professor?
I work for UNO, the United Nations Organization.
Another
no.
politician? Yeah, another. Jesus.
No, I work for a branch of UNO, WHO, the World Health Organization.
What's your area of special concern?
Family planning.
So, if we ever want to find out about you know what, we could go to Uno Who.
So, what about you, Colonel Mustard? Are you a real colonel?
I am, sir.
You're not going to mention the coincidence that you also live in Washington, D.C.?
They all look at her, then at him. Colonel Mustard stops eating, a forkful of food halfway to his mouth.
How did you know that? Have we met before, ma'am?
I've certainly seen you before, though you may not have noticed me, I dare say.
She smiles at him. Mr. Green is no fool. He has made a quick deduction.
Miss Scarlet, does that mean you live there too?
Bum, bum,
Sure do.
bum.
Does anyone here not live in Washington, D.C.?
I don't. Mr. Green is thinking.
Yes, but you work for UNO, a government job, and the rest of us all live in a government town. Anyone here not earn their living from the government one way or another?
They all look at each other.
Wadsworth, where's our host and why have we been brought here?
Wadsworth works down the hallway to the front door. Tense music. Dun, dun, dun. He opens the door, and standing there is an unreposing man. Wadsworth seems pleased to see him in an odd sort of way.
Ah, Mr. Body, you are eagerly awaited.
I find that hard to believe. This is not your place, I take it.
No, sir, it is on loan.
He steps aside to allow Mr. Body to enter. He does. Mr. Body looks at Wadsworth up and down with a sneer on his already unpleasant features.
And what are you supposed to be?
I am supposed to be polite, though when talking to you, I find that task is almost beyond me.
They are talking loudly enough to be heard in the dining room. All 6 guests are listening to the conversation in the hall. So is Yvette. The cook is listening too. Wadsworth is hanging up Mr. Body's hat, coat, and umbrella.
Just one, oh, sorry.
Just one thing, Wadsworth. Remember, I know who you really are, and don't you forget it.
Shall I take your bag?
No, I'll leave it here till I need it.
As you wish. It contains evidence, I presume.
Surprises, my friend. That's what it contains. Surprises.
He puts it under his coat, or under the coat rack. As he does so, Wadsworth turns back to the front door and locks it with a deadlock key.
May I see that key?
Over my dead body, sir.
Mr. Body gives a little smile. Wadsworth sets off across the hall to the dining room. Mr. Body follows.
Have you just arrived from Washington, sir?
Yes, it's a long haul.
Indeed, it is a long haul, but then it's a very large house.
You think you're quite a fellow, don't you?
All the guests are eating in silence. Wadsworth enters, followed by Mr. Body. Everyone turns to look at Mr. Body as he enters. He stops dead, slightly frightened. When he sees them all, they look at him with curiosity. It should be clear to us that he recognizes them, but none of them recognizes him.
I got a similar letter.
So did we, didn't we?
I also received a letter.
Meanwhile, Yvette has been placing the main course in front of Mr. Body. He waves it away.
No thanks, Yvette. I'm not hungry.
Mr. Green flashes a look at them both. Again, he is quick on the uptake.
How did you know her name?
Mr. Body smiles at Yvette, slides his hand up her skirt, that dashing man.
We know each other, don't we, dear?
She nods almost imperceptibly.
Forgive my curiosity, Mr. Body. Did your letter say the same thing?
No.
I see. Can I interest any of you in fruit or dessert?
No one is interested. They shake their heads. Much of the main course has been left uneaten.
In that case, may I suggest that we adjourn to the study for coffee and brandy, at which point I believe our unknown host will reveal his intentions.
They all rise. The men stand aside to let the ladies out first.
Ladies first.
Wadsworth signals to Yvette to start clearing the table. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet are conversing as they cross the hall.
If he's in the study, why didn't he join us for dinner?
Well, I'm certainly looking forward to meeting him.
You see the study. It is empty. The guests, led by Wadsworth, cross the hall from the dining room and they enter the study. They stop and look around.
There's no one here.
Mind if I smoke?
She offers cigarettes around. Professor Plum takes one and lights them both.
Please help yourselves to coffee and brandy and be seated.
He crosses the desk past a blazing log fire on the desk. Is a plain brown envelope simply addressed to Wadsworth. Please open after dinner. He picks it up and they settle on chairs and sofas in the room. It is a comfortable room, that it is. Sitting in silence, they all wait and watch him. Wadsworth picks up a fancy letter opener and opens the brown manila envelope. He draws a short paper. He glances at it and looks around, replacing the envelope on the desk.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am instructed to explain to you what you all have in common with each other, unless you would care to do the honors, Mr. Body.
Why me? Do they know who I am?
I don't think so. You have never identified yourself to them, I believe.
Why? And who are you?
Mr. Body addresses all the guests. He stands up.
We've all been dragged here for nothing. It's a hoax. I suggest we all leave.
I'm sorry, sir, but you cannot leave this house.
No?
He goes out of the house. Yep.
You can't leave.
Who's going to stop me?
There is no way out.
Mr. Body tries to open the front door. It is locked, and as he does, all the guests crush into the doorway to watch.
Oh, hold on. This is an outrage. How dare you hold us prisoner?
The other speaker wants.
What is this?
Right.
I'm getting
this.
frightened.
No.
Please, return to the study and all will be explained. You too, Mr. Body.
They turn reluctantly. Mr. Body follows. From a POV over Mr. Body's shoulder, we can see that he has seen the conservatory and he hurries towards it.
Other way.
But Mr. Body takes no notice, so Wadsworth hurries out into the hall and hastens down the hall in the pursuit of Mr. Body. He jumps onto a ledge at the far end and he picks up a flower pot preparatory to breaking the glass.
You can't get out that way.
Why not? It's just glass.
Good.
Everyone is sitting. Who is waiting there sees that they have refills of coffee and starts to hand brandies around.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all have one thing in common. You are all being blackmailed.
Dun, dun, dun. They all glance nervously at each other.
For some considerable time, all of you have been paying what you can afford, and in some cases more than you can afford, to someone who threatens to expose you. And none of you know who's blackmailing you, do you?
I've never heard anything so ridiculous. Nobody could blackmail me. My life's an open book. I've never done anything wrong.
Anyone else wish to deny it? Very well. As everyone here is in the same boat, there is no harm in my revealing some details, and my instructions are to do so.
Don't you think that you might spare us this humiliation?
I'm sorry. Professor Plum, you were once a professor of psychiatry specializing in helping paranoid and homicidal lunatics suffering from delusions of grandeur.
Yes, but now I work at the United Nations.
So your work has not changed. But you don't practice medicine at the UN. His license to practice has been lifted, correct?
Why? What did the fucker do?
You know what doctors aren't allowed to do with their lady patients?
Yes.
Well, he did.
Too bad he didn't do it to me.
How disgusting.
Are you making moral judgments, Mrs. Peacock? How then do you justify taking bribes in return for delivering your husband, Senator Peacock's vote to certain lobbyists?
My husband's a paid consultant. There's nothing wrong with that.
Not if it's publicly declared, but if the payment is delivered by slipping used greenbacks in plain envelopes under the door of men's room, how would you describe that transaction?
I'd say it stank.
How would you know? You've never been in a men's room.
So it's true.
No, it's a vicious lie.
I'm sure we are all glad to hear that, but you've been paying blackmail for over a year now to keep this story out of the papers.
I'm willing to believe you. I'm also being blackmailed for something I didn't do.
Me too.
And me.
Not me.
You're not being blackmailed.
Oh, I'm being blackmailed, all right. But I did what I'm being blackmailed for.
What did you do?
Well, to be perfectly frank, I run a specialized hotel and a telephone service which provides gentlemen with the company of a young lady for a short while.
I need
Oh,
that
yeah?
number.
What's the phone number?
Men.
So how do we know that the Colonel Mustard works in Washington? Is he one of your clients?
Certainly not.
I was asking Mrs. Scarlett.
Tell them it's not true.
It's not true.
Is that true?
No, that's not true.
Aha, so that is true.
A double negative.
A double negative? You mean you have photographs?
Ooh, that sounds like a confession to me. In fact, the double negative has led to proof positive. I'm afraid you gave yourself away, sir.
Are you trying to make me look stupid in front of the other guests?
You don't need any help from me, sir.
But seriously, I don't see what's so terrible about Colonel Mustard visiting a house of ill fame. Most soldiers do, don't they?
But he holds a sensitive security post in the Pentagon. And, Colonel, you drive a very expensive car for someone who lives in a colonel's pay.
I don't. I came into money during the war when I lost my parents.
Oh, you lost them. Did you report the loss to the police?
No, dying is perfectly legal.
Sometimes, yes. Mrs. White, you have been playing our friend the blackmailer ever since your husband died, shall we say, mysterious circumstances?
What's so funny?
I see. That's why he's lying on his back in his coffin.
I didn't kill him.
Then why are you paying the blackmailer?
I don't want a scandal. We had a fight. He was crazy. He hated me. He had threatened to kill me in public.
Why would he want to kill you in public?
I think she meant that he had threatened in public to kill her.
And was that his final word on the matter?
Being killed is pretty final, wouldn't you say?
And yet he was the one who died, not you, Mrs. White, not you.
What did he do for a living?
He was a scientist, nuclear physicist.
What was he like?
He was always stupidly optimistic. I'm afraid it came, unlike me, as a great shock to him when he died. He was found dead at home. His head was been cut off. So had his, you know.
Sorry.
Alright.
So 33.
It's still me. I'd been out all evening at the movies.
What was showing?
From here to eternity.
How very appropriate.
Do you miss him?
It's a matter of life and death. Life after death. He's dead. Now I have life.
But he was your second husband. Your first also disappeared.
That was his job. He was an illusionist.
But he never reappeared.
He wasn't a very good illusionist.
I have something to say. I'm not going to wait for Wadsworth here to unmask me. I work for the State Department and I am a homosexual. I feel no personal shame or guilt about this, but I have to keep it quiet or I'll lose my job on security grounds.
Well, that just leaves Mr. Body.
What's your little secret?
His secret? Oh, I thought you'd all realized. He's the one who's blackmailing you all.
You
Dun, dun, dun.
bastard!
Colonel, please don't do anything rough.
What am I?
He puts his fists up for an old-fashioned fight. Mr. Body responds by stamping abruptly on Colonel Mustard's foot, and as Colonel Mustard bends forward in pain to clutch his foot, Mr. Body neatly pokes him in the eyes with 2 fingers simultaneously.
Ow! What the fuck? Ow!
Wait, the police are coming.
The police?
Oh, the police.
You must be crazy. How
My
can we
career.
tell the police? I'll be ruined.
It's
Maybe that'll be
It's a
more
bunch of
interesting.
morons.
Jesus Christ, listen to me!
Motherfuckers.
Blackmail depends on secrecy. You have all admitted how he's been able to blackmail you. All you have to do is tell the police, then he will be convicted and your troubles will be over.
See,
No.
Wadsworth.
Oh my God.
You see, Wadsworth, it's not so easy. They'll never tell the police.
Then I shall. I have evidence in my possession, and this conversation is being tape recorded.
Yvette is standing beside an old-fashioned reel-to-reel
Is it
tape
video
recorder,
too?
monitoring the recording of the conversation taking place.
Where's my
inside the
taser?
tape recorder is placed in a cupboard. Mr. Green?
Ladies and gentlemen,
No, I know. I thought you were reading the next line. Point of order, sir. Tape recordings aren't admissible evidence.
I've admitted to nothing.
Nor have I.
ladies and gentlemen, the police have already been invited. They will be here in 45 minutes. Tell them the truth, and Mr. Body will be behind bars.
They all stare at him in panic. Then Mr. Body walks to the door.
Where are you going this time?
I think I can help them make up their minds. May I just get my little bag from the hall?
Mr. Body emerges from the study and crosses the hall and picks up his case and returns to the study. Mr. Body re-enters, leaving the door open. He places the attaché case on the desk, turns to face his victims.
Can anybody guess what's in here?
I have several guesses, but the evidence against us, no doubt.
Mr. Body smiles, shakes his head, and opens the case. In the case is 6 gift-wrapped parcels. He hands one to each of the 6 guests.
We didn't know we were meeting you tonight. Did you know you were meeting us?
Oh, yes.
What were you told precisely?
Merely that you were all meeting to discuss our little financial arrangements, and if I did not appear, Wadsworth would be informing the police about it all. Naturally, I could hardly resist putting in an appearance.
They're all staring at the smug, complacent, loathsome figure of Mr. Body.
Open them.
They look at the presents in their hands. Mr. Body pours himself a brandy in the canner, sniffs the bouquet, and sips it.
Why not? I enjoy getting presents from strange men.
She carefully removes the ribbon, the wrapping paper, and comes to a cardboard box. Slowly, she lifts the lid. Puzzled, she lifts out a heavy brass candlestick. She looks at Mr. Body.
A candlestick? What's this for?
Mr. Body looks around at the group.
Nobody else is going to open up. Go on, pretend it's Christmas.
Mrs. White opens her present and finds a rope. Then Colonel Mustard, who gets
Kinky.
a wrench. Mr. Green gets a lead pipe. Miss Peacock gets a dagger. Then Professor Plum opens his present. It contains, dun dun dun, a revolver. They look at their gifts at first in confusion, and as the revolver appears in horror.
In your hands, you have a lethal weapon. If you denounce me to the police, you'll also be exposed and humiliated. I'll see you to that in court.
He's walking in the room, coming face to face with each of them as he speaks.
But if one of you kills Wadsworth now, no one but the 7 of us will ever know.
Wadsworth reacts, appalled.
He has the key to the front door, which he told me would only be opened over his dead body.
Mr. Body is now face to face with Wadsworth.
I suggest we take him up on that offer.
He crosses the door to the study and turns to face them all.
The only way to avoid finding yourselves on the front page is for one of us to kill Wadsworth now.
And standing right beside the door to the study that switches to the light. The room and the screen are plunged into blackness. Thuds, gasps, screams.
God, my
Gunshot.
tasing arm.
The sound of shatter. A taser goes off.
My God.
The lights come back on.
Oh, please tell
Mr.
me.
Body is laying on the floor.
No! My one true love. Is he alive?
Stand back! Give him air! Let me see! He's dead.
Damn it. Who had the gun?
I did. The gun is now on the floor nearby.
So you shot him.
I didn't!
Well, you had the gun. If you didn't, who did?
Nobody! Look! There was no lightning burst in the door! There's no gunshot wound. Professor Plum turns Mr. Body over. Somebody tried to grab the gun in the dark, and the gun went off. Look! The bullet broke that vase on the mantle.
He's right. And there's a bullet lodged in the paneling. Here, see?
They all cross the look.
So how did he die?
I don't know. I'm not a forensic expert.
But one of us must have killed him.
They all
I
look
didn't
around
do it.
nervously, aware that a murderer is present amongst them.
I didn't do it.
I need a drink.
Make that too.
She puts down the dagger and picks up a brandy goblet that Mr. Body placed on the table near the door just before the lights went out. She raises it to her lips and sips a little. Maybe he was poisoned! Mrs. Peacock screams and drops the glass. She continues screaming hysterically. After some moments of continued screaming, Mr. Green slaps her in the face.
I had to stop her screaming.
Was the brandy poisoned?
They all, except for Mrs. Peacock, who is half sitting, half lying on the sofa, hurry over to look at the brandy goblet.
Looks like we'll never know.
Unless she dies too.
They all hurry over to the sofa and stare at Mrs. Peacock. From another room, they hear a terrible screaming sound. They all freeze and stare at each other in terror. Then at once, Mr. Green starts screaming too.
Mr. Flocci, stop screaming, sir.
The screaming from the other room is still continuing to Colonel Mustard.
Sir, why are you screaming?
Because I'm frightened.
Of what?
Screaming. There's somebody screaming next door.
Sean, take a chill pill.
The group rushes into the hall. The screaming
Morons.
seems to be coming from the billiard room. It is still continuing. Colonel Mustard tries the handle. The door is locked. He knocks on the door. He rattles the handle, then pounds on the door.
Open the door!
It must be the murderer.
Why would he scream?
I could think of several ways that he could. He must have been a victim in there. Oh my God. Yvette.
Oh my God.
They bang on the door. The screaming stops.
Hello? Hey, morons, open the fucking door.
There is silence, rhythmic clicking sound.
You're alive.
No thanks to you.
Well, what do you mean?
You locked me up with a murderer.
So the murderer is in this room.
Yes.
Where?
He looks desperately at Professor Plum, who is standing next to him.
We are all looking at him.
They all look around desperately.
Or her. It's what Mrs. White said in the study. One of you is the killer.
How do you know she said that?
I
She
was
indicates to the
listening.
tape recorder, the reel's still turning. A small piece of tape catching on the reel makes the clicking sound.
I was listening.
But why weren't we? I mean, why were you screaming in here? All by yourself? Oh.
Because I'm frightened. I also drank the cognac. Mon Dieu. I can't stay in here by myself. I'm too young to die. Then come back to the study with us. With the murderer?
There's safety in numbers, my dear.
She nods. Wadsworth switches off the tape recorder. They return to the study. Mr. Body is still lying there on the floor. Miss Peacock sits on the sofa again.
Is there no indication of how he died?
No!
This is terrible. This is absolutely terrible. This is not what I'd intended. Oh my God!
He crosses to a chair and sits. Mrs. White realizes the full impact of his remarks.
You know, you weren't what I intended either. I mean, not what you intended.
Then they all
So-
stare at him. Wadsworth mops his brow.
So you're not the butler.
I'm not the butler, but I am a butler. In fact, I was his
God.
butler.
And Wadsworth points to the Mr. Body. So, if he told you to invite us all to the house, why did he arrive late?
I invited you. In fact, I wrote the letters. It was all my idea.
Now Wadsworth is building himself up into an emotional state, a panic attack.
Wait a minute. I don't understand. Why did you, hey, invite us all here to meet your late employer? Were you assisting him to blackmail us?
Certainly not.
I wish you were. I think you better explain.
Please sit down, everyone.
They all take seats. Unfortunately, there are only 7 possible places to sit. Mr. Green gets to 2 or 3 of them in a moment. Finally, as they're in nowhere else to sit, he perches on the edge of a table. He settles himself comfortably to listen.
Right. When I
Table collapses, and then and with it to the lamp, bottle of liquor, and glasses. They are all over the place. Mr. Green's very embarrassed, picks himself up.
I'm sorry. I'm a little accident prone.
Oh, he's a little what?
He's a little jerk.
Miss Scarlet lights up another of her ever-present cigarettes.
When I said that I was Mr. Body's butler, that was both true and misleading. I was once his butler, but it was not his untimely death this evening which brought my employment with him to an end. Oh no.
So when did it come to an end?
When my wife decided to end her life, she too was being blackmailed by this odious man who now lies dead before us. He hated my wife for the same reason that he hated all of you. He believed that you are all thoroughly un-American. For some reason, he felt it was inappropriate for a senator to have a corrupt wife, for a doctor to screw his patients, for a wife to emasculate her husband, and so forth.
So you're single?
He's speaking without irony. Wadsworth is a very sincere fellow who always tries to understand.
But this is ridiculous. If he was such a patriotic American, why didn't he report it to the relevant
He
authorities?
decided to turn his information to good use and make a little money out of it. What could be more American than that? Mr. Body was truly an apostle of free enterprise. He became a rich man, but money is the fruit of all evil.
Evil
And
rules.
what was your role in all of this?
I was a victim too. At least my wife was.
Wadsworth, now tearful, wipes his eye with the back of his hand.
Well, we all make mistakes, but Mr. Body threatened to give my wife's name to the House Un-American Activities Committee unless she named them. She refused, and so he blackmailed her. We had no money, and the price of his silence was that we worked for him for nothing. We were slaves. Well, to make a long story short,
Too
Too late.
the suicide of my wife preyed on my mind and created a sense of injustice in me, and I resolved to put Mr. Body behind bars. It seemed to me that the best way to do it, and to free all of you from the same burden of blackmail, was to give us all face-to-face, confront Mr. Body with his crimes, extract a confession, and then turn him over to the police.
Professor Plum stands. He looks at the others, relieved that he understands what has been going on. So, everything is explained. Mrs. Peacock nods vigorously.
Ugh. No, you morons. Nothing's explained. We don't know who did it.
The point is, we must find out within the next 40 minutes before the police arrive.
Miss Peacock leaps to her feet.
The police coming here? Oh my God, the scandal. I'm a senator's wife. I'll be ruined.
But how can we possibly find out which of you did it?
What do you mean, which of you did it?
Well, I didn't do it.
One of us did. We all had the opportunity. We all had the motive.
We'll all go to the chair.
They all gaze at each other, further horror. Then Professor Plum comes with an idea. Maybe it wasn't one of us.
Who else could it have been?
Who else is in the house?
Only the cook.
The cook!
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 And as the group
That's
of
the
mutts, they rush out of the study.
Bonsai!
Banzai!
Rushes across the
Banzai.
hall to the kitchen. It is a very large room, kitchen is flagstones, blah, 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 blah. They look around.
She's not here.
And besides him, a cupboard door opens, groans and opens. The cook falls face first out of the cupboard, dead. She has a knife in her back, the dagger. The Scarlet screams.
Ah!
The cook is in Mr. Green's arms. He just stands it stands aghast, near to tears, holding her up.
I didn't do it.
They all stare at him.
Well, help me, somebody.
Mrs. White, Colonel Mustard, Miss Scarlet hurry forward to help Mr. Green lower the body to the floor of the cook to the floor.
Don't touch it.
Miss White stops just in time.
It's evidence.
Not for us. We have to find out who did this, and we can't take fingerprints.
I think you'd better explain yourself, Wadsworth.
Me? Why me?
Who would want to kill the cook?
The dinner wasn't that bad.
I'm afraid she has reaped the fruits of her evil and received her just deserts.
If this was dessert, I'm glad I said no.
I wish you were the dessert.
How can you make jokes at a time like this?
It's my defense mechanism. Want to meet the taser?
No. Some defense. If I were the killer, I'd kill you next.
Mrs. White
Oh, really?
and Mr. Green both stare at him.
I said if. I mean, if I was the killer, I'd tase you. That's all. After all, there's only one admitted killer here, and that's not me. It's her.
If I'm going to admit something, it's about me and Sergeant Pepper getting together. But other than that, I'm not admitting anything.
You paid blackmail. How many husbands have you had?
Mine or other women's?
Yours.
1, 2, 5. 5.
5?
Yes, just 5. Husbands should be like Kleenexes, strong, soft, disposable.
So you don't believe in marriage?
I certainly do. Perhaps it's because I was educated in a convent. Poor me, not a man in sight. Unlike you, Mr. Wadsworth. But I'm in the habit.
You lawmen to the death like a spider with flies. I mean, I don't blame them, but still, it's creepy.
What can I say? They just can't stay off me. But you're right. Flies are where men are the most vulnerable.
Well, if it wasn't you, who was it? Who had the dagger? It was you, wasn't it, Mrs. Peacock?
They all turn to look at her, standing in the doorway next to Professor Plum, her eyes averted from the dead body. She is suddenly frightened. She licks her lips anxiously.
Yes, but I put it down
Where?
in the study.
When?
I don't know. Before I fainted. After I fainted. Who knows? But any of you could have picked it up.
Look, I suggest that we move the cook's body into the study.
Why?
I like to keep the kitchen tidy.
Okay, got it.
Wadsworth steps forward. Professor Plum, Colonel Mustard, Mr. Green help. The cook was being hefty lady, but somehow they lift her and they drag her to the study, and then they drop her face first onto the floor. Where Mr. Body's corpse was, there is nothing. Professor Plum realizes at first. Look! Great Scott! Colonel Mustard, Mr. Green, and Wadsworth react in fear.
What?
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 The body is gone!
Oh,
Professor Plum
fuck.
has already let go of the cook's right arm. Now, I guess Wadsworth let go of the cook, then thud. This is Peacock.
What are you all staring at?
Nothing.
Well, who's there?
Nobody.
What do you mean?
Nobody. No body. That's what we mean. Mr. Body's body, it's gone.
Maybe he wasn't dead.
He was!
We should have made sure.
How? By cutting his head off, I suppose?
There's more than one way to find out, but that wasn't called for.
Well, where is he?
Well, we better look for him.
Mr. Green and Colonel Mustard let go of the legs and both feet and thud, tentatively perhaps with the eerie music, but there's no signs of Mr. Green.
He couldn't have been dead.
He was. At least I thought he was, but what difference does it make now?
It makes quite a difference to him. Maybe there is life after death.
Life after death is unlikely. That's why we gotta do other things, as unlikely as sex after marriage.
Well, we've got to find out. The police will be here in 35 minutes, and we have another corpse on our hands.
Maybe he killed the cook.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ow.
Silence.
Well, if you'll excuse me, I have to. Is there a plunger in a ladies' room in the hall? I just need to get this energy out.
Oui, madame.
No, I just want to powder my nose.
Mrs. Peacock hurries out. Meanwhile, Miss Scarlet has picked up the envelope that Wadsworth had opened earlier and produces some photographic negatives. She's intrigued.
And what's this, Wadsworth?
I'm afraid those are the negatives to which Colonel Mustard earlier referred.
My God!
Were you planning to blackmail him, Wadsworth?
Well, certainly not. I had obtained them for the Colonel, and I was going to give them back when Mr. Body was unmasked.
Very pretty. Would you like to see these, Yvette? They might shock you. No, thank you. I am a lady. And how do you know what sort of pictures they are if you're such a lady?
What sort of pictures are they?
How dare you, madam? Give them to me at once.
No. I think there's something in them that concerns me, too.
Let me see.
No, my girlfriend's on them. Please don't look.
Nobody can get into that position except me, if you know what I mean.
Throw
Oh,
the
we
gun.
do.
I'll show you.
Not now.
Oh no, get off me.
Just demonstrating. Meanwhile, Miss Peacock has found the door of the bathroom under the stairs. She tugs at it. It won't open. She tugs again. The door opens, and the body of Mr. Body falls out. She screams. Blood is dripping from his head. He falls against her. She screams and screams.
Oh my God. Oh, body. Oh.
It's Mrs. Peacock.
He rushes out to the hall. The others follow. Wadsworth grabs the negatives from Miss Scarlet as he goes and puts them on the table. Miss Peacock is fighting off Mr. Body, who is falling all over her. The others run towards. There is blood all over her face. It's Mr. Body!
He's attacking her.
No,
Wadsworth and
he's
Mr.
not.
Green pull him off, and they realize that he now has visible injuries. His head has been bashed. Blood is everywhere.
No, he's not dead. I would know. No, he's not. He's dead. I would know.
Mr. Body? Dead? Again?
Oh my God.
She's going to faint.
Catch her!
I'll catch you. Fall into my arms.
Can I as well?
Standing beside behind her, Wadsworth holds out his arms to catch her, and she faints through his arms.
Sorry.
Mr. Green looks at the bloodied hand, so do all the others.
You've got blood all over your hands.
I didn't do it.
He's got new injuries. He's certainly dead now. Why would anyone want to kill him? Twice!
He goes into the toilet to look for clues.
Oh, it seems so unnecessary.
It's what we call overkill.
It's what we call psychotic.
Unless he wasn't dead before.
What's the difference?
That's what we're trying to find out. We are trying to find out who killed him and where and with what.
There's no need to shout.
All right, I am. I'm shouting. I'm shouting. I'm shouting.
He stops shouting. Purple in the face glares at them defiantly. The heavy brass candlestick wobbles and topples off the top of the door frame and of the loo and hits him in the head. It is blood-stained. The rain is still pulling from the outside. Going too fast. There's a car. Car skids. The motorist comes up. Professor Plum, Colonel Mustard, Mr. Green are lugging Mr. Body into the study. Colonel.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure. All right, I'm in command now. Move the cook.
Mrs. Scarlet and Mrs. White and Yvette clamber over the body to start dragging the cook along the floor on her back. The dagger is still sticking out of her back.
Put the corpses on the sofa.
The men hesitate, too dazed to do anything. Colonel Mustard prompts them, and indicating the cook.
Ladies first.
The men put down Mr. Body's body and help the ladies lift the cook up onto a sofa. Professor Plum is mesmerized by Yvette's breasts as she bends over.
Careful, don't get blood on the sofa. Look, Professor.
I'm looking.
How do we do this? The dagger will go further into her back.
Tip her forward. Oh, excuse me, but thank you. Tip her forward over the arm. They do so.
And now it's you again.
Oh, shit. Now Mr. Body.
They haul him onto the couch next to the cook. Panting, they stand back.
Now, who had access to the candlestick?
All of us.
You were given it.
Yeah, but I dropped it when the lights went out. Anyone could have picked it up. You? Him?
Look, there are still all these weapons. The rope, the gun, the wrench, the lead pipe, the gun. Let's put them in this cupboard and lock it. There's a homicidal maniac about.
I mean, I guess,
Yes,
unless
good
it's
idea,
in the
great.
bedroom later.
Lock 'em up, yeah, sure.
Party!
Bonsai!
Bonsai!
Bonsai.
God, I picked a
Wadsworth,
great time to
helped by the
quit
others,
drinking.
Puts the remaining weapons into the cupboard and locks the door. He puts the key in his pocket.
What are you doing with the key?
Putting it in my pocket.
Why?
To keep it safe, obviously.
But that means you can open it whenever you want.
It also means that you can't.
But what if you're the murderer?
I'm not.
But what if you are?
It has to be put somewhere, and if I've got it, I know I'm safe.
But we don't know we are.
So where do we leave it?
In the lock?
Brilliant! I have an idea. We'll throw it away.
He rushes out of the study. The others follow. Led by Wadsworth, they all rush to the front door. Wadsworth throws open the door, pulls back his arm, rapidly preparatory for throwing the key into the night. He realizes that he is standing face to face with the motorist. The motorist thinks that Wadsworth is about to punch him, and he half ducks. Wadsworth.
Oh, sorry. Can we help?
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb the whole household, but my car broke down out here, and I was wondering if I could use your phone.
Just a moment, please.
Turn and All 8 people turn in amongst themselves over a hasty, whispered conference. Occasionally, words float out of the huddle.
Oh, I say no.
Let's tase that
Great
sucker.
Scott, Marty! What are you, stupid?
I think we should use the
8.1
rope for something
gigawatts!
else.
Wadsworth turns and tries to look as dignified and normal as possible.
Very well, sir. Would you like to come in?
Well, where is it?
What, the body?
The phone. What body?
There's no body. Nobody. There's nobody in the study.
He points to the study door. The motorist starts walking toward it. Simultaneously, everyone realizes that there is that
Oh,
is where the
no.
bodies are.
morons! I'm
No.
surrounded by morons.
No.
That's been disconnected, but I think there's one in the lounge.
Thank you. I have to call my Uncle Harvey to come get me.
Okay, walk this way.
He sets off doing his usual undignified butler walk. Wadsworth indicates the phone to the motorist.
When you've made your call, perhaps you would be good enough to wait here.
Certainly, you can look at all my magazines I brought with me of people, women, yeah.
Wadsworth retreats to the door, opens it, goes out, and shuts the door. The motorist is now alone in the lounge. As he shuts the door, he jumps. Colonel Mustard is right behind him. And the motorist is about to dial when he sees and hears a key being turned in the mortise lock. Okay. He realizes that he is locked in. He is very anxious now. Wadsworth leaves the key in the lock. He turns to face 6 guests and Yvette, who are all staring at him.
Now, where is that key?
Still in the lock.
Not that key, the key to the cupboard with the weapons.
You still wish me to throw it away?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes!
What do you think, you moron?
Unless you want to use it later tonight.
He walks to the front door. One of the guests opens it for him. He takes the key from his pocket. This time, there is no one waiting outside. He hurls the key far and away, and it lands in a distant shrubbery.
What now? We've got 25 minutes left till the police get here.
I'm getting a coffee. Black.
There's a general chorus of "Me Too" from all the guests. Colonel
Yeah.
Mustard leads off the
Good
library.
thing I brought my
All-
Agnes juice.
Mr. Body
I'll
and
take that,
still
Agnes.
lying dead on the sofa.
Just checking.
Everything all right?
Yes, 2 corpses. Everything's fine.
Wadsworth, bringing up the rear, speaks to himself incredulously.
Corpses, everything's fine?
But Colonel Mustard is leading them all into the library. Everyone stands around nervously. Colonel Mustard pours himself a stiff drink and tries to take charge. Blick, coffee.
Anyone want some whiskey with their coffee?
I brought my
Oh,
own.
fuck yes.
Damn straight.
Double shot or single shot?
Hit me. You know what I mean.
Okay. Right. Paying attention, everyone. Wadsworth, I am right in thinking that that there's no one else in this house, correct?
If we throw him out, if we throw him out, he may get even more suspicious. I can read.
If I were him, I'd be suspicious already.
Look, look, that guy doesn't matter. Let him stay locked up for another half an hour. Who cares? The police will be here by then. And then 2 dead bodies in the study, people.
Will
Really?
you shut up?
What do you suggest?
The colonel pulls himself together and takes a swig of his drink. Either the alcohol or the panic seems to have caused the brain to seize up.
It's the caffeine. There seems to be confusion about whether now we are the only people in this house.
I told you there isn't.
You mean there isn't any confusion or there isn't anyone else?
Either or both.
Then give me a clear answer.
Certainly. What was the question?
Is there anyone else in this godforsaken house?
No. Oh.
Colonel Mustard is still unsure, and he eyes Wadsworth with a steely eye.
That's what he says, but does he know? I suggest we handle this in proper military fashion. Split up and search the house.
Split up?
Yes. especially you. We haven't much time. Let's split up in pairs.
Pairs?
Can I dibs Nevish?
Sure, yes.
Professor Plum looks around at the others. Clearly, he has deep misgivings. Wait a minute. Suppose that one of us is the murderer. If we split up into pairs, whichever one of us is left alone with the killer might be killed.
Then we would have to then we would have discovered who the murderer was.
Yes, but the other half of the pair would be dead.
Colonel Mustard is quite philosophical, about this. He shrugs.
This is war. Casualties are inevitable. You can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. Every cook will tell you that, especially the one who's dead.
Yes, but look what happened to the cook.
There's a pause while all consider what happened to the cook.
Are you willing to take that chance?
What choice do we have?
He waits, expecting a chorus. After several moments, they all mutter, none, chorus, not.
Of course not.
Bonsai.
Bonsai.
Outside?
Undercore, but it's dark upstairs, and I'm frightened of the dark. Will anyone go with me?
I will.
I will.
I will
Oh, I will.
suggest we draw lots for partners.
He goes over to the fireplace, and from the mantelpiece, he takes a box of matches. He leaves the library, gesturing to others to follow him. Wadsworth goes into the kitchen, crosses to the kitchen. He cuts each one into pairs of different sizes, puts them in his hand so everybody can pull each one out.
Ready? The shortest with the second shortest. Agreed? And let's say the two shortest search the cellar, and so on up.
They nod, and one by one, accompanied by tense music, dun dun dun, Wadsworth is paired with Mrs. White, Yvette with Mr. Green, Colonel Mustard with Miss Scarlet, and Professor Plum with Miss P. Cock. It's you and me, honey bunch.
Yuck. Why don't we all search the house together?
We haven't the time. Let's go.
You should have said that earlier.
All right, guests come out. All right, guests come out of the kitchen into the hall. We see them divide up into the pairs. Professor Plum, Miss Peacock separate from the other six and head towards a door that opens up the cellar stairs. Wadsworth, Mrs. White, Yvette, and Mr. Green all go up to the main stairs. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet remain in the hall.
Well, we know what's in the study, and we've just come from the library. And the stranger is locked in the lounge, so...
Let's look at the billiard room again, Shawnee. Ever done it in the billiard room?
I don't think we have.
Let's go.
All
They
right,
cross
I'll
the
get
hall.
under the table.
Across the hall, carefully
Not
open
me, Paul.
the billiard room. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet come in nervously, search it. Under the table, in the cupboards, behind the full-length drapes and the window, nobody else is there. They sneak behind the couch and have some whoopee.
It says
Wadsworth and
under the
Mrs.
table. It's in the
White
scripts.
Wadsworth and Mrs. White are peering anxiously into the couple of dark bedrooms, slightly unwilling to go in.
Are you going in there?
You can come in here anytime. Yes? Are you?
Yes.
They don't move. They stare at each other suspiciously.
Right.
Right.
They don't move. Wadsworth feels he should explain himself.
I can't see a light switch.
Oh, neither can I. But there must be switches by the beds.
Shall I come in with you?
No, I mean, fuck yes. Thank you.
He goes into the first bedroom. She goes into the second. The landing is empty for a moment. Then both their heads reappear around the doors. The rain is still pouring down. The wind is howling. Mr. Green and Yvette pause at the foot of the staircase.
You want to go in front of me?
You know.
I'm sure there's no one up there.
Then you go in front.
Okay.
But Mr. Green doesn't move. Professor Plum and Miss Peacock are standing at the top of the cold flagstone steps. Cold brick walls. Well, ladies first.
No, you can go first.
No. As Potchki, I insist.
No, I insist.
What are you frightened of? A fate worse than death?
No, just death and sometimes toilets. Isn't that enough?
Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet tentatively push open two big double doors at the far end of the hall. They open it into a huge, dark, cavernous space to the ballroom.
What room's this?
Search me.
Okay.
Meow, 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 meow,
Round 2, it
meow,
seems.
meow.
I didn't mean that literally, though that'd be great. Get your mitts off me.
Attic staircase. Yvette and Mr. Green have not moved. They are squeezed in side by side at the bottom of the narrow staircase.
Go on. I'll be right behind you.
That's why I'm nervous.
Then let's go together.
Interior hall, side by side. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet try to get into the big dark room through one of the double doors. They go again and they bang it together again. Wadsworth is groping around in the first bedroom trying to find a lamp.
There's anyone in here? Just look out.
Mrs. White is doing the same thing in her room.
Are you hiding? I'm coming.
Oh, Lord.
This is perfect for Agnes. Oh, damn script.
My face is turning red. Woo.
I didn't plan any of these people, sort of, kind of.
And they bang together, really?
I knew what I was getting myself into. Or at least Agnes did.
Buzzerplum and Miss Peacock have reached the bottom of the steps. Various dark rooms open out in front of them. Wadsworth finds himself a bedside lamp. Mrs. White is in the second bedroom, now sees a little because of the light spilling through an interconnecting door. Mrs.
Wait,
White.
is that me now? Oh, okay, sorry.
All right.
Who are you?
You have to compose yourself now.
Who is this? Oh, who are you?
No reply. She sees a light switch, backs toward it, switches it on. She looks around. She is in the children's nursery full of toys, dolls, big bears, rocking horses, trains. She has been talking to a big doll. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet switch on the light. They see a huge ballroom stretching before them, a piano at the end.
Nobody here.
Unless in those cupboards or behind those curtains.
You look. I'll search the kitchen.
He goes. The long curtains move. She stares. They move again. Miss Scarlet goes slowly and fearfully towards them. Sharp glass is broken and the wind is blowing through. The motorist car stands just outside. A police car rolls up. We're going to keep scrolling down. Keep going to 76, where we're going to come to the motorist is on the telephone.
I'm a little nervous. I'm in this big house and I've been locked into the lounge. And the funny thing is, there's a whole group of people here having some sort of party, and one of them is my old boss from.
Then, held in the gloved hand that he could be male or female, the wrench comes into shot and hits the motorist on the head.
Ow, son of a bitch!
Miss Scarlet is leaving the ballroom. She comes out into the hall. She calls nervously.
Colonel Mustard? Colonel Mustard? Shawnee?
It's Colonel Sean. That's the name you gave it. There's no one in the kitchen.
Shall we try the conservatory?
Yeah, sure.
Guess we can do it in there, too.
Yeah, sure. Well, why the hell not? Life's an adventure.
Bow chicka bow wow.
From the
This is an eerie-looking
window
room.
to the wall.
Eerie looking room, big trees and plants, weird looking shapes all over, and everybody looks around.
Look!
He points. We see that a panel in the wall is slightly ajar.
Looks like a secret passage.
They look at each other nervously.
Shall we see where it leads?
Let's do it.
I mean, that's close to what you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
Oh, shit, I thought we were reading that. What the hell? I'll go first. I've had a good life.
Yes, you have.
Tense music. Colonel trips on something. He stumbles, and it makes a big echoing noise.
God damn it!
The interior lounge. The gloved hand switches off the light. Now there's only a little moonlight coming through the crack in the shutters. Miss Scarlet and Colonel Mustard emerge into the room.
Why is it dark in here?
Because there's no light.
Suddenly, she
whoops.
trips or is pushed. She stumbles forward. He is pushed. He drops the flashlight. It goes out. Her foot catches the face of the dead motorist. She falls over his body.
What's that? What's happened?
Did you push me?
No, did you push me?
No, I fell over.
Did you hurt yourself, Slant?
No, I landed on something soft.
We can see what she's landed on. She feels around. Her hands find the motorist's
Oh.
head.
Oh, it's a body. Not again. Somebody else is in here.
Flashlight is switched on. It moves across the room.
Who is it?
Colonel Mustard swings around, swinging out his arm. His hand hits the flashlight, held by the gloved hand. Impact. The flashlight flies through the air. It lands on the floor. Shoe kicks it.
The murderer's in here!
I'm in here with a murderer.
Colonel Mustard crashes over the body and falls on Miss Scarlet. She gasps.
Isn't foreplay either!
It better not be.
Mr. Green and Vetter in the attic, picking their way among
Ginny?
the old junk chest, grandfather, blah, blah, blah. From below, we hear screams, Miss Scarlet screaming.
Ah!
77.
Help! Help! Help!
Yvette and Mr. Green run towards the stairs. Colonel Mustard is still lying on Miss Scarlet. She's trying to get away. He's trying to calm her down.
Leave me alone.
It's me. It's Colonel Sean.
So it's you.
Of course it's me.
Wadsworth and Miss White emerge from their respective bedrooms, hearing the screaming. Then, as Yvette and Mr. Green hurtle down the attic stairs, they all run down into each other. Meanwhile, from the lounge, we hear Miss Scarlet screaming. The dialogue are always okay.
Oh!
Oh, who's that?
Where is it coming from?
A lounge.
They all rush to the door of the lounge. Mr. Green tries to open it. The door's locked.
I know.
Well, unlock it.
The key's gone.
Never mind about the key. Unlock the door.
I can't unlock the door without the key. Let us in. Let us in.
Let us out!
Let us out! Let us out!
It's no good. Stand back.
He walks firmly back to the door. He is at his most macho.
There is no alternative. I'll have to break it down.
Oh, yes, show us.
Murder! Help! Help! Murder!
Miss Peacock loses her temper. She shouts at the door.
Will you shut up? We're doing our best.
Yeah,
Yvette
sure
comes
you are.
running out of the study. The revolver is in her hand. She trips over Wadsworth, whom she does not see, writhing on the floor. The gun goes off. She falls. It shoots the gilt rope that holds up the chandelier above the hall. The chandelier comes loose, hanging only by a thread. Meanwhile, then, when the gun went off, everyone else dived for cover. Yvette picks herself up, runs to the locked door. She fires the gun at the lock.
Why were you shooting that thing at us, you asshat?
To get you out?
Well, you might have killed us.
No, I
The phone's shaking. I
wouldn't.
can't read. I can't take this any more scares.
The
Look,
chandelier comes crashing down behind him. The shock frightens them all, but out of their wits.
look.
She stands aside. They all peer in through the door and see the dead motorist.
Ah! I've been shot! They're shooting at us! They're shooting at us!
That's what you get for shooting me in the tasing arm.
Is
The
it little
chandelier
Nebby?
is hanging lopsided closer. We see it is hanging. Yvette picks herself up, runs up and runs to the locked lounge door. The chandelier thread is unwinding. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet flatten themselves. The lock has been shot away.
Come out! The door is open.
Complete silence. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet open the door. They look.
Why were you shooting that thing at us?
To get you out.
The chandelier rope is unwinding.
You might have killed us. I can't take any more. Wait, what? Okay, I can't take any more scares.
He takes a step away towards a chair or sofa. He is facing down. The shock almost gives the chandelier falls behind him and crashes.
Look,
She stands aside and switches. Yeah, this is weird.
Oh, I think it was a repeat of the page.
Yeah, I was like,
yeah, I was like, wait a second.
Repeats.
Yeah, I know. They all peer in through the door and see the dead motorist.
He needed that hole in his head, he needed that hole in the head, like a hole in the head.
Which of you did it?
we found him together.
There's a secret passage from the conservatory. See?
They all crowd into the lounge and gape into the secret passage.
It comes from the conservatory.
Thank God you were able to get us out, Yvette.
Is that the same gun? Miss Peacock?
Oh. From the cupboard?
But it was locked.
No, it was unlocked.
Dun dun dun.
Unlocked.
Unlocked?
But yes, see for yourself.
Sure enough, the cupboard is open and the key is in the lock. They all rush in.
How did you know it was unlocked? How did you know you could get at the gun?
I didn't. I think I break it open, but it was open already.
A likely story.
They all stand still, frozen in terror, not knowing whether to go to the front door or not, which doorbell has just rung.
Maybe they'll go away.
They wait and hope. Ding! A dong.
Maybe.
I'm going to open
Maybe
it.
they'll go away.
Why?
I have nothing to hide. I didn't do it.
They rush from the study to the hall towards the front door.
Get the taser.
Good evening, sir.
Officer Jill Monroe is standing outside.
God,
Yes.
why is Jill here?
I found an abandoned car near the gates of this house. Did the driver come here for help by any chance?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
Please just go.
No.
Well, actually, yes.
No.
No.
Banzai!
Fucking A.
There seems to be some disagreement.
No.
No.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh,
please
No.
go. I'll buy you a beer later.
Yeah.
Can I come in and use the phone?
Of course you may, sir, madam. You may use the one in the.
Yeah?
You can use the one instead. No.
Oh,
Would you be kind enough to wait?
yes, spit it out. I don't have all day. I have, a crocheting place to go to. I mean, sure.
Okay.
She comes in. As she steps into the hall, she notices Yvette. She stops and eyes her suspiciously.
Don't I know you from somewhere? You all seem anxious about something.
It's because that chandelier fell down. It could have killed us.
Scarlett hurries to the lounge and Professor Plum to the study. They shut both doors.
Please help yourself to a drink if you like. Not the cognac, just in case.
In case of what?
But Wadsworth has shut the door, also with a bang, and locked it. But this time he is in a big hurry and leaves the key in the lock. He hurries back along the hall to where the 6 guests and Yvette are still standing panic-stricken.
What now?
Should have told him.
You're muted.
It's all very well to say that now.
I said it then.
Oh,
Shut up.
Shut up.
The cop is trying to open the locked door. Puzzled, he leaves it and crosses to the telephone. She is about to lift the receiver when it rings. Very loudly, she jumps. Then she answers it.
Hello? Yes? Okay. Okay.
Wadsworth and the group have frozen. Colonel Mustard?
There we go.
Sean?
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that the phone?
Maybe the cop answered it.
They turn towards the library door. The cop is on the phone.
And who shall I say is calling? Sorry, let me pull up my pen and my pad. Oh yes. And I'm Jill Monroe. Okay. Okay, sir. I'll try, sir. I apologize. But well, you see, I'm locked in a room here.
Jim, the door
I'm locked in here. Let me out. You have no right to shut me in. I'll book you for false arrest, wrongful imprisonment, obstructing an officer when she has a crocheting meeting to get to. I am an officer in the course of her duty and murder.
There's a momentary pause. The key is jiggled and unlocked. He sees and opens the door. Wadsworth, Yvette, Colonel Mustard, Mr. Green, Miss Scarlet, Miss White, Miss Peacock, and Professor Plum are all standing there. Wadsworth speaks with as much innocence as he can muster.
What do you mean murder?
I just said that to make you open the door. But what's going on in here? Why did you lock me in? And why are you receiving phone calls from a J. Edgar Hoover?
What?
J. Edgar Hoover on the line.
J. Edgar Hoover.
That's right. The head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
The
Federal Bureau
FBI.
of
Bureau of Investigation.
on.
Potchki Chronicles Detective Agency?
Oh,
Why
God,
is
it's Potchki.
Why is J. Edgar Hoover from Potchki Chronicles Detective Agency on your phone?
I don't know, but he's on everybody else's. Why shouldn't he be on mine?
He goes into the library. He's about to shut the door when he hesitates and prudently removes the key from the lock. He shuts the door. The cop is left standing in the hall with the others.
What's going on here?
We're having a party. Jill, it's a party.
Mind if I look around?
They all stare at her with desperation in their eyes, except for Miss Scarlet.
Sure, you show him around, Mr. Green.
Me?
Yes. Why don't you show him the dining room or the kitchen or the ballroom? Show her, I mean, Jill.
Thanks,
I mean,
Lynn.
Jill?
Fine. Fine. Come with me, officer. I'll show you the dining room or the kitchen or the ballroom or the toilet.
He leads him away, the cop going somewhat reluctantly, his eyes lingering on the study and the lounge door. As the cop and Mr. Green disappear in the dining room, Miss Scarlet turns to the others.
Okay. Everybody listen or get tased.
The cop and Mr. Green come into the dining room.
This is the dining room.
No kidding. What's going on in those two rooms?
What two rooms?
Mr. Green's voice is still high-pitched in terror. Miss Scarlet is talking to Mrs. White and Colonel Mustard in front of the bodies of the cook and Mr. Body on the sofa.
Now, make it look convincing.
She grabs a bottle of brandy from the sideboard. Miss Scarlet and Professor Plum whiz across the hall and into the lounge. Oh, they couldn't go party emergency. Just as Mr. Green and the cop emerge from the dining room, the cop points to the study and lounge doors.
Those two rooms.
Oh, those two rooms.
Yes.
He walks purposely towards the study. Mr. Green hurries after him, grabs his arm, and stops him.
Officer, I don't think you should go in there.
Cop stops walking and stares at him.
Why not?
Well, because it's all too shocking.
Cop brushes Mr. Green aside. Lights are off. The phonograph is playing softly. I ain't got nobody. The cop switches the lights on. The sofa, Mrs. White is sitting on the knee of Mr. Body. She is kissing him on the mouth. He appears, from the cop's point of view, to be embracing her. Mrs. White, like a puppet. The cop sees this and his eyes turn to another couple. The cook is standing up in the corner, her arms wrapped around Colonel Mustard, kissing her. Okay. In the corner, we see the cook's hands are behind her back, and Mrs. Peacock is concealed behind cook. Cop turns to Mr. Green, who is watching open-mouthed.
It's it's not all that shocking. Folks are just having a good time.
He leaves the room, followed by Mr. Green. Mrs. Peacock comes out from behind the dead cook. She is looking demented.
Oh my God.
Mrs. White stops kissing Mr. Body.
How could you kiss that thing?
I've kissed plenty of things. This one was like kissing my first husband.
Before or after you cut his head off?
Oh, stop.
Miss Scarlet pours brandy into the mouth of the dead motorist. The cop and Mr. Green across the hall. Miss Scarlet and Professor Plum are in an embrace. The motorist is now lying back in the chair, his head injury not visible from the front. The cop enters. Miss Scarlet and Professor Plum separate. The cop eyes them. Mr. Green still open-mouthed.
Excuse me.
He sees the motorist across, and he sees the motorist and crosses over to him. He sees the bottle. He bends down and sniffs his breath.
Oh, he's drunk. Dead drunk.
Dead right.
Cop shakes the motorist. The bottle slips onto the floor. The motorist, not surprisingly, doesn't wake up when shaken.
I hope you're not going to drive home.
Oh, he won't be driving home, officer. I promise you that.
Someone will give him a lift?
Yes, we'll get a car for him. A long black car.
A limousine. Cop nods.
Mhm.
Mr. Green is still open-mouthed. Wadsworth is on the phone.
Goodbye.
He replaces receiver and, remembering his situation, hurries into the hall.
Officer,
You're late. I've seen everything.
Wadsworth is shattered by this statement. As always, the dialogue maintains considerable there, and there lies the humor.
ooh, you have? I can explain everything.
You don't need to.
I don't?
Don't worry. There's nothing illegal about all of this.
Are you sure?
No. Unfortunately, this is America. And I'm still single.
I see.
It's a free country. Didn't you know?
I didn't know that it was that free.
May I use the phone now?
Certainly.
Lighted, he shows the cop into the library. The cop goes in. Wadsworth locks the door again. He leaves the key in the lock. The cop again notices the door is locked. He turns to the telephone. All the group come out of the study and lounge.
Why didn't you lock him in there again?
We didn't finish searching the house.
But we're running out of time. Only 15 minutes till the police come.
The police came already.
Shut
Shut
up.
up.
Stop!
Banzai!
Banzai!
Die!
Banzai.
That takes Mr. Green by the hand. Yvette.
Oh, come on.
And they hurry up the main stairs. Wadsworth and Miss White follow. We move with them to hide them on the second floor. Everybody goes back to originally where they were going. Colonel Mustard and Miss Scarlet enter the kitchen.
Look!
Mr. Colonel.
Oh, yes. Look!
I don't believe it. Where does this one go?
You want to find out?
Oh, very well. Yes.
Uh-oh.
Ladies first.
I don't have the
That's
rest.
what I said.
I don't think that's in the script.
I was like, we're missing the 1 + 2 + 1.
Oh,
Oh.
Yay!
Hooray!
Banzai!
Bonsai.
we'll fix this and edit.
And most people won't get the bonsai part yet, but
I
that is
know.
soon coming to a podcast near you.
It was kind of amazing how this totally fit our characters, like just perfectly.
Yeah! Anna, I was freaking dying at all your parts, just from start to finish.
I mean, Agnes, the secret is you just pretend like everything is sexual, and that's about it.
Okay.
Hannah, that bumper.
All right, back to-
Bingo.
Picking back up where we left off because the script just ended. We found another script thanks to Rob.
Woo-woo.
Quickly. Okay, so we're picking up. First cellar room. Professor Plum hears a sound. It is a rat or a man. We see the dim light. A huge rack of wine bottles and noise comes from behind it. Is anyone there? Miss Peacock can just see the large round shape. We can see it's a huge old-fashioned central heating coil.
Don't touch me.
The room is dark, but in the ballroom, we're back into the ballroom.
Who's that? Is anyone there? Slant is not scared. Nope.
The window has been left slightly open. On this floor, the windows have been shuttered. Some light rattle. White.
Is anyone there?
Wadsworth blunders into the dressing room in the dark.
Is anyone there?
There's thunder light. He steps back and falls over the dressing table stool. Miss White turns and screams in terror. The cop is on the phone. He hears the screams.
Hello? Hello?
Mr. Green and Yvette run into each other on the top of the attic stairs. They collide.
Leave me alone.
Get away from me!
And together they stumble down the stairs. Mr. Green falls in a heap. Yvette is hurrying down the main stairs. She can just see enough that she has the banisters to guide her. She reaches the hall, crosses silently to the billiard room.
Hello? Hello? Are you here?
Yes.
What's going on?
Come in, shut the door. Did the cop recognize your face?
He must have. And not just my face. He knows every inch of my body. Like you. And like...
Rope is thrown around her neck. She is horrified. Her eyes widen.
It's you!
The rope is jerked, closing her windpipe. The cop is talking desperately on the phone.
There's something funny going on here. I don't know what it is. No. I'm not on duty. But I have a feeling that I'm in danger. You know that big ugly house on top of...
And behind the cop's head comes the lead pipe. The same gloved hand is holding it. It hits him on the head and thud. Cop falls on the floor. All the guests and Wadsworth as the bell goes. Big close up. From inside the hall, the front door opens. The young woman from Western Union stands there, looking towards us, smiling. Then she sings.
I'm your singing telegram.
Bang! The young woman falls dead. The door slams shut. Mr. Green hears a gunshot from below. He turns appalled, stumbles towards a door, opens it, and runs into a cupboard. Good. Colonel Mustard hears, and after a moment's shock, runs towards the hall. He bumps into the dining room table, knocks it forward.
Ouch!
The Scarlet hears all the noise and looks towards the door. Mrs. White, trying to find the door in the dark, bangs into a large box. A huge jack-in-the-box springs out immediately in front of her. She almost has heart failure, screaming.
Help! Somebody! Most likely Wadsworth or Nabash. Help!
Wadsworth is blundering around. He hears Mrs. White shouting for help. He calls out.
Coming! I'm just trying to find the door.
You better be coming.
Finds the door, he calls out. His hand turns a handle. He moves quickly forward. He bumps into another obstruction. His hand finds another handle.
The door.
Mrs. White is still shouting for rescue.
Nabash, come help me.
He jerks the handle and goes through the next door. Immediately, he hits the wall.
Is this a cupboard?
He finds another handle.
Another handle?
He turns it. Water cascades over him.
Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm in the shower.
He stumbles out through the bathroom door, finds the bedroom, and with the help of the moonlight, into the main hall. Wadsworth hurries, dripping down the stairs into the kitchen. Just inside the door, he finds the electricity main lever, switches it back on. And we'll jump down to 98. Mr. Green, I think.
2 murders?
Neither of them shot. I thought I heard a gun.
So did
So did I.
The front door slammed.
Oh, God. Oh, no.
Oh God, the murderer must have run out.
Let's see.
Wadsworth throws it open, and at their feet is the body of a young woman. The bullet's point of entry is seen clearly on her forehead.
3 murders.
6 altogether.
This is getting serious.
They gape. He turns and slams the front door. He crosses to the door on of the lounge. He looks at the floor, then turns to the others.
No gun. Yvette dropped it here, remember? Now it's gone.
They all look at each other with deep suspicion.
Very well. I know who did it.
You do?
You do?
Hmm? And furthermore, I'm going to tell you all how it was all done. Follow me.
He leads them.
Okay. All right.
It seems that following may initially be the result of okay. And 10.
What's going on?
Your phone.
What happened?
Get off the interstate.
I'm sorry.
Get out of the tunnel.
Very high intense situation.
So what are we doing?
They all come into the library.
All right. In order to help you understand what happened, I shall need to take you through the events of the evening step by step. At the start of the evening, Yvette was here by herself, waiting to offer you all a glass of champagne. I was in the hall. I know because I was there. Then I hurried across to the kitchen.
Wadsworth runs to the kitchen, the 6 guests follow him.
And the cook was in here alive, sharpening the knives, preparing dinner. Then the doorbell rang. It was you.
Yes.
I asked for your code. I recognized you as Colonel Mustard and prevented you from telling me your real name, as I didn't want any of you to be addressed by any name other than your pseudonym. And I introduced myself to you as the butler. I lead you across the hall to the library. And Yvette met you and smiled and poured you a drink. And the doorbell rang again, and it was Mrs. White, looking pale and tragic, and I told her that she was expected and took her coat and hung it up. And I introduced Mrs. White to Colonel Mustard, and I noticed that Mrs. White and Yvette flinched.
Then what?
Then we heard a rumble of thunder and a crash of lightning. And to cut a long story short, about one by one, you all arrived. Mrs. Peacock shook hands with Yvette, and Colonel Mustard and Mr. Green was offered champagne by Yvette. And Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet arrived together and were all introduced. And then the gong was struck by the cook, who went into the dining room. And Mrs. Peacock sat here, and Colonel Mustard was here, and Mr. Green and Professor Plum and Miss Scarlet and Mrs. White, and the chair was vacant, and...
Get on with it.
Yes. Get on me. I mean, Ed.
I'm telling it as fast as I can. Anyway, we all arrived, and that we received letters, and you had a letter, and you had a letter, and you had a letter, and you had a letter.
Get on with it.
That is blackmail.
Can't hear you.
You're right.
Okay.
Mr. Green sat here, and Mrs. Peacock sat here, and Professor Plum here, and Colonel Mustard here, and Mrs. White, and Mrs.
Get on
with it.
before I tase you.
Mr. Body came to get his surprise packages from the hall. And you opened your present. Miss Scarlet got a candlestick, Mrs. White got a robe, and Colonel Mustard got a wrench, and Mr. Green got a lead pipe, and Miss Peacock got a dagger, and Professor Plum got a gun. Then Mr. Body switched out the lights.
Good.
God.
That's right. Mr. Body lay here, apparently dead.
He was dead. I examined him.
Then why was Mr. Body bashed on the head with a candlestick a few minutes later if he was dead already?
How should I know?
So, you made a mistake.
I did not.
Why not admit it?
Doctors, like the Pope, never admit a professional mistake or a sexual indiscretion.
If you didn't make a mistake, you were lying, which looks very bad for you.
Okay, I made a mistake.
Right. But if so, why was Mr. Body pretending to be dead? It could only be because he realized that his scheme had misfired and that the gunshot was intended to kill him, not me. Look, The bullet grazed his ear. Clearly, his best hope of escaping death was to pretend to be dead already.
It's you.
Gun?
Eric, it's you.
Professor Plum.
Oh, I'm sorry, I went too far ahead. So whoever grabbed the gun from me in the dark was trying to kill him.
But remember what happened next. Mrs. Peacock took a drink. You said maybe it's poison. She screams, ah! And drops the glass. He drops the glass. Right, that's me. We took her to the sofa. She's still screaming. Mr. Green slaps her face. Then we heard more screaming from the library, and Yvette and Mr. Green screamed, and Colonel Mustard slapped him. And we rushed out. And she screamed, and we tried the handle, and it was locked, and we knocked, and she screamed, and we rattled and pounded, and then they won't open the door. And hello, yoo-hoo, and Yvette opened the door, and we rushed in. But one of us wasn't here.
No.
No.
No, maybe one of us was murdering the cook who wasn't here with us.
Do you know?
I do. While we stand here trying to stop Yvette from panicking, one of us could have stayed in the study, picked up the knife, ran down the hall, and stabbed the cook.
How could he risk it? We might have seen him coming back.
Not if they used this secret passage. And the murderer ran back down the secret passage to the study.
Is that where it comes out?
Yes, look.
How did you know?
This house belongs to a friend of mine. I've known all along.
So how could you be the murderer? So you could be the murderer.
Don't be ridiculous. If I was the murderer, why would I reveal to you how I did it?
Well, who else knew about the secret passage?
We found it. Slant and me.
You found it. You could have known about it all along.
But I didn't.
Why should we believe you?
Because he was definitely with us all in the billiard room doorway while Yvette was screaming. Don't you remember?
That's true. He was next to me.
Yes, I was.
But what I don't understand is, why was the cook murdered? She had nothing to do with Mr. Body.
Of course she did. I gathered you all here together because you were all implicated in Mr. Body's dastardly blackmail. Did none of you deduce that the others were involved too?
There are others?
The cook and Yvette?
No.
No.
That's how he got all his information. Before he could blackmail anyone, Mr. Body had to find out their guilty secret. The cook and Yvette were his accomplices.
I see. So whoever knew the cook was involved killed her.
Yes, I know, because I was Mr. Body's butler, that the cook had worked for one of you.
Ooh.
Wow.
You recognized Yvette, didn't you? Don't deny it.
What do you mean? Don't deny it. I'm not denying anything.
That's another denial.
All right. It's true. I knew Yvette. My husband had an affair with her, but I didn't care. I wasn't jealous.
And you knew Yvette too, didn't you?
Oh, yes. She worked for me.
And you also knew her, sir.
Well, what are you suggesting?
We have already established that you were one of Miss Scarlett's clients. That was why you were so desperate to get those negatives photographs of you and Yvette in flagrante delicto, remember?
Mr. Body threatened to send me the pictures to my mother. The shock would have killed her.
That would have been quite an achievement, since she's dead already. So he had the motive.
You all had a motive. So the cook was dead. We lugged her back to the study and Mrs. Peacock was screaming. Mr. Body, dead, toilet, candlestick.
But when and where was Mr. Body killed?
Don't you see? Look, we came back to the study with Yvette and Mr. Body on the floor, playing dead, but one of us knows he's still alive. I explained that I was Mr. Body's butler, and I'd invited you here, and we realized there was only one other person in the house.
The cook.
The cook.
The cook.
Duh.
Aha! By now, she was dead. We laid her down with her backs to the cupboard. One of us slipped through the same secret passage.
Again?
Of course, back to the study. The murderer is in the secret passage. Meanwhile, Mr. Body had been on the floor. He jumped up. The murderer came out of the secret panel, picked up the candlestick. Mr. Body followed us out of the study into the hall looking for an escape. And the murderer crept up and killed him.
Will you stop it?
Then the murderer dragged him into the toilet.
Are you sure it wasn't Potchki?
And then nonchalantly rejoined us beside the cook's body in the kitchen. It took less than half a minute.
So who wasn't with us the whole time in the kitchen?
Whoever it was is the murderer.
He races past them, exits frame. A moment later, they rush after him. Interior shooting. Wadsworth enters frame again in front of a cupboard.
And we put the weapons in the cupboard, locked it, and ran to the front door to throw away the key. The motorist! I didn't throw the key away. I put it in my pocket, and somebody must have taken the key out of my pocket and substituted another.
We're all in a huddle. Any one of us could have done it.
Precisely.
Wait a minute. Colonel Mustard has a top secret Pentagon job. Mrs. White's husband was a nuclear physicist, and Yvette is a link between them.
What is your top secret job, Colonel?
I can tell you, he is working on the secret of the next fusion bomb.
How did you know that?
Can you keep a secret?
Yes.
So can I.
I begin to see how it was done.
Was it a plot between them, Wadsworth, or did Colonel Mustard do it alone?
We shall see. Let's look at the other murderers.
Yes, it was bad luck for the motorist that he arrived at that moment.
It wasn't luck. I invited him.
You did?
You did.
Of course! It's obvious! Everyone here tonight was either Mr. Body's victim or accomplice. Everyone who has died gave him vital information about one of you. I got them here so that they'd give evidence against him and force him to confess.
So you knew the guy who came to make the telephone call?
He was my driver during the war.
And what was he holding over you? Or do I have to tell them?
No, he knew I was a war profiteer. I stole essential air radio spare parts and sold them on the black market. That's where I made all my money. But that doesn't make me a murderer.
A lot of our airmen died because their radios didn't work. Was a policeman working for Mr. Body too?
The cop was from Washington. He was in my pay. I bribed him once a week so that I could carry on business. Mr. Body found out somehow.
My God.
And the singing telegram girl?
She was my patient once. I had an affair with her. That's why I lost my license. Mr. Body found that out too.
Let's put her in the study with the others. Get on with it. So, now you all know why they died. Whoever killed Mr. Body also wanted his accomplices dead.
But how did the murderer know about all of them? I mean, I admit, I guess that this young singer had informed on me to Mr. Body, but I didn't know about any of you till this evening. I mean, I'd never even met Mr. Body.
Yeah.
That's right.
Right.
Jordan and I.
That's not-
Bonsai.
I'll get to that.
Bonsai.
Bonsai! I'll get to that.
Nice.
The murderer had to get the weapons. Easy. He'd stolen the key from my pocket, and we all followed Colonel Mustard's suggestion that we split up and search the house.
That's right. It was Colonel Mustard's suggestion.
And after we split up, there were 4 more murders.
And whose suggestion was it to lock the motorist in the lounge?
Colonel Mustard, wasn't it?
Indeed. So, then we drew lots. We split up, and one of us got away from his or her partner and hurried to the study. Here, on the desk, it was the envelope from Mr. Body. It contained photographs and letters, the evidence of Mr. Body's network of informants.
Where's the envelope now?
Gone, destroyed, perhaps in the fire, the only possible place. Then, having found out the whole story, the murderer opened the cupboard with the key and took out the wrench.
The Colonel Mustard found the secret passage from the conservatory to the lounge where we found the motorist dead.
We couldn't get in, so Yvette got the gun from the open cupboard, shut the door open, bang, and then the front doorbell rang again.
How did you do that? Oh, how did you do that?
I didn't.
I don't believe this. I just don't believe this. I can't believe this is happening.
However it is, they've got to go away or they'll be killed.
Mrs. Peacock has rushed to the front door. She flings it open. An earnest-looking elderly man is standing there. He has pamphlets in his hand.
Good evening. Have you ever given any thought to the kingdom of heaven?
What?
Repent. The kingdom of heaven is at hand.
You ain't just whistling Dixie.
Armageddon is almost upon us.
I've got news for you. It's already been here.
Go.
But your souls are in danger.
Sorry. Our lives are in danger. Get lost.
She slams the door in the elderly man's face, then turns, panting, leaning against the door, emotionally wrung out.
The cop arrived next. We locked him in the library, and we forgot about the cupboard with the weapons was now unlocked. We split up again, and the murderer switched off the electricity. In the dark, the murderer ran from here across the hall to the study, gets to the rope and the lead pipe. He ran to the billboard room, strangled Yvette, ran to the library, and hits the cop with the lead pipe. Then, coming out of the library, he saw automobile lights coming up the drive. It was the singing telegram. The murderer picked up the gun where Yvette left it here beside the lounge door, opened the front door, recognized the singing girl from her photograph, and shot her. Then, ran back to the cellar.
The
The
cellar.
cellar?
Now look,
Yes, but Ms. Peacock.
Colonel Mustard wasn't in the cellar.
No, but you were.
Me? What's it got to do with me?
Colonel Mustard?
Oh, sorry. The finger of suspicion points at you.
It's rude to point.
You murdered them all. You were the person who was missing when the cook and Mr. Body were murdered, and the cook used to be your cook. Don't you remember your fatal mistake? You told us all at dinner that we were eating one of your favorite recipes. And monkey's brain, though popular in Cantonese cuisine, are not often to be found in Washington, D.C.
is that what we ate?
Are there any brains to be found in Washington, D.C.?
Why would I have murdered all the others?
Obviously, in case Mr. Body had told them about you too.
So it was all nothing. It was all nothing to do with the disappearing nuclear physicist and Colonel Mustard's work on the new fusion bomb.
No, communism was just a red herring, and Mrs. Peacock did it all.
There's no proof.
Very well. The gun is missing. Gentlemen, turn out your pockets. Ladies, empty your purses. Whoever has the gun is the murderer.
Very well. What do you propose to do about it?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing at all. I don't approve of murder, but it seems to me that you have performed a public service, ridding the world of an appalling blackmailer and his disgusting informer.
But the police will be here any minute now. Then what happens?
Why should the police come? Nobody's called them.
You mean?
That's right. Now, I suggest we stack all the bodies in the cellar, lock it, leave quietly, one at a time, and forget that any of this ever happened.
Good idea, but I'll leave first if you don't mind.
Be my guest. I think we all owe you a vote of thanks. For she's a jolly good fellow, for she's a jolly good fellow.
She's a
She's
jolly
a
good
jolly
fellow.
fellow.
Say all of us.
So say
So
all.
say all of
All of
us.
So say all of us. Banzai.
Banzai.
Evil rules.
Evil drools.
Evil rules.
Mr. Green.
I told you I didn't do it.
Colonel Mustard.
Colonel.
Oh, there we go. But what if the authorities find out what happened?
The FBI will take care of that.
Colonel?
I do.
Hi.
My phone call from Mr. Hoover. I work for him, of course. How else could I have known all about you all?
Mustard.
Colonel Mustard.
I'm sorry. I'm multitasking right now. I'm sorry.
Don't die on the road.
I know. Just skip me. Just skip me.
But there's one thing I still don't understand. Pick it up.
Thank you.
One thing.
But
Who
who
was
was Mrs. Peacock taking bribes from?
A foreign power. Her husband, the senator, has influence over defense contracts.
Is there going to be a cover-up?
Isn't that in the public interest? What would be gained by exposure?
But does the FBI make a habit of cleaning up after multiple murder?
Yes. Why do you think it's run by a man called Hoover?
Mrs. Peacock? Why are you holding a gun?
Oh, so I am. Well, it's dangerous to go out here. It's so isolated.
Is that thing registered?
I don't know. It's not mine.
You don't need that weapon.
No, I guess I don't.
Oh, Mrs. Peacock.
How did you know my name?
The kingdom of heaven is at hand. And he fires the revolver at her. Bang, surprise, she collapses at a frame, dead. The elderly evangelist twirls the gun around his finger and teaches a high school class. Wadsworth, all clear. I got her. She who lives by the gun shall die by the gun.
You see, like the Mounties, we always get our man.
Mrs. Peacock was a man?
Oh,
Got
Shut
no.
up, you moron.
Slat, tase him.
Got it. With pleasure.
The end.
Yay!
Evil rules.
Bravo.
Evil rules.
This was awesome.
Oh,
That was,
listen, where,
That was-
what are you looking at, Eric? You're very intensely.
yeah,
I
I'm
know
looking for the 1 + 1
Potchki.
+ 2 + 1. I would love to hear that.
I know, so would I. Wait, is that is Miss Scarlet, isn't it?
Yeah, that should be Miss Scarlet one. That should be the
Yeah,
next
that's what
one,
I'm
I
looking
believe.
for.
Unless they changed it in the shooting script.
Could be.
There's a lot of stuff in here that wasn't in the movie.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
The elderly man didn't have many lines.
I mean, most of it's pretty close.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Kingdom of Heaven, at least in the one version, you might have just.
Nate,
That was-
your fast reading is just
Yeah.
amazing. I
Yeah,
just
that
bow
was
down
pretty cool.
to
Definitely a lot. When we write Nebbish, we're always trying to find like those sort of big chunks for Nathan to say.
It's the super run-ons.
It is. It's a lot of fun.
oh man, I can't
You
find it.
still looking?
Yeah, I'm looking too because I do remember that part.
So we'll, Eric, do you know if this is going to be 2 recordings or 1? The Zoom call.
It should be one full.
Okay, good. And then I'll post it on YouTube probably tonight or tomorrow, so
Yeah.
we can share it.
Oh man, I can't find the damn thing.
I don't know. I
Just
can't
do a
find it in
search.
here either.
I don't know
can't
if it'll
really
find it on this.
I'm-
It's not
I'm-
like
looks
an
like a
actual
scan.
PDF. Yeah.
I'm in the website link
Oh,
itself.
that's true.
Talk amongst yourselves.
What if I don't
Yeah,
want to
that
talk amongst myselfs?
Now it's
Talk amongst
fun,
yourselves,
everybody.
then.
That was a lot of fun.
That was great.
It was good. It was really good.
I think it's at the very end. I just
think-
don't know if I can see it, but it's like
Another one to be done could be marked by what was it? Marked by death?
Murder by Death.
Murder by death.
Or The Cheap Detective.
Anybody know Murder by Death?
I've
Oh,
heard of it.
Robin?
I've heard of it, but I've not.
I don't know it. Oh, and
Oh,
Eric, I
that's-
found it. It's on page 77. That's like it's one. Yeah, I found it. The
What-
1 + 1.
Line what? What's the
It
line number?
is. It's. Let's see.
It's
Which,
going to
which
change.
take?
176. I think it's like continued. It's the third ending, and
Yeah, 1.
Yeah, because once I think the third ending was the real ending because it's where he basically says everybody did specific
Yeah.
each
So
murder.
it's
yeah,
political. So it is political, right? The top of that page.
Yeah. yeah. And then it's She
Then just
says, I know, sweetie pie, but you can pay me in government information. And then it just goes down, and there's that. No, there was only one shot that got the chandelier. That's 1 + 2 + 1 + 1. That one.
Which?
oh yeah, it's like 2 pages later.
Yeah.
Where is that one? I missed
It's on one. It's on.
It's literally the second to last page of the document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna mute myself because
It
there's
says
apparently my
D123.
neighbor below me is hammering something.
They're
Not
getting
Agnes, that's for
hammered.
sure.
And not the kind of hammer that Agnes likes. If that were the case, I'd be with them.
I was laughing at the one part where it's like, oh, there's like a hole in his head, but it's like I can still hear her talking dirty at the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Then I've done my job.
All right. Well, I guess should we go through that or no?
One?
What?
Which one?
There was one.
What?
1 + 1 + 2 + 1 part, or no?
Where is it? What page?
Mm.
You know what? Mine just shut it. Shit. I just lost it again.
By the way, does anybody have friends in Ireland? We had a listener in Ireland.
Ooh.
No.
I do, but I don't know if she would have been listening. But yes, I do have a friend in Ireland.
We had Singapore,
I
United
do
Kingdom,
as well.
Canada, India, and Ireland, besides the U.S.
I know some people in Canada, but I'm not sure if they listened or not.
Singapore, UK, Canada, India, and Ireland. 47% on Spotify are listening.
What page is what's it called? I lost my thing shut down and then I had to pop it back open again.
It's on PDF. It's page 77. It's like the last 2 pages. So just before the last, like almost the very end.
One is one on page 124, but where does that begin? Where are we starting?
It's
I mean, we would have to read. You just have to pick up like just that part.
you mean the top part? That I know, sweetie pie, but you can pay me in government information. All of you.
What page?
No,
what is it?
I know. I mean, just
Page 123 in the script.
I would
Yeah.
say interior the hall, which is like 2 pages up, kind of leads into that. Wadsworth is besides the front door. Saw the automobile lights picked up. That's like 2 pages above that, which
Okay,
leads
so
into
page
the whole.
121.
Yeah, right above 176 is the line number.
The scene, yeah.
Yeah, the C number.
See it, Eric?
The doorbell rings. They're all surprised and wary. Wadsworth, don't move, any of you?
Nope.
No, keep going.
Because that's 176 for me.
The last 2, it's like
It's
okay. I see.
D176.
The next page up says 176 too. Wadsworth races into frame and rips out the.
Nope.
D. It should be ending D. There should be a D
Yeah.
first, and then it'll say line 176.
I'm lost.
Go to the end of the document and then just go like 3 pages up.
yeah.
That's the easiest way to go.
Okay. So kept going.
Oh, there it is.
Shut
Yeah,
up,
have a
Sean.
bird in the background.
Man, too bad Carlos wasn't here. That would have
Yeah.
been fun.
That would have been fun.
Okay.
Is that interior
Or
hall?
yeah, go ahead. Just go. I'll find it.
Wadsworth is beside the front door.
Mhm.
Saw the automobile lights, picked up the gun where Yvette dropped it, opened the front door, recognized the singing telegram from her photograph, and shot her.
You have no proof.
The gun is missing. Gentlemen, turn out your pockets. Ladies, your purses. Whoever has the gun is the murderer.
Brilliantly worked out, Wadsworth. I congratulate you.
Here, here.
Shut up.
But there's one thing I don't understand.
One thing.
Yes. Why do it? Half of Washington knows what kind of business you run. You weren't in any real danger. The whole town would be implicated if you were exposed.
I don't think they know my real business. My business is secrets, and Yvette found them out for me. The secrets of Senator Peacock's Defense Committee, of Colonel Mustard's fusion bomb, or Professor Plum's UN contracts, and of course, the work of your husband, the nuclear physicist.
So it's political. You're a communist.
The State Department has always been so unsophisticated. No, Mr. Green, communism is just a red herring. Like all members of the oldest profession, I'm a capitalist. I'll sell my secrets, your secrets, to the highest bidder.
And if we don't cooperate?
Then, just like Mr. Body, I'll expose you and tase you.
But we can expose you. 6 murders.
I hardly think it will enhance your reputation at the UN, Professor Plum, if it is revealed that you have been implicated not only in adultery with a patient, but in her death and the deaths of 5 other people.
You don't know the kind of people they have at the UN. I might go up in their estimation.
It's no good blackmailing me, Slant. We work for the same boss. Plus, I've had no more money.
Nor have I.
Or have
All
I.
right.
I know, Shawnee Poo, but you can pay me in government information. Now, all of you, except for you, Wadsworth, you, as a mere butler, have no access to government secrets, so I'm afraid your moment has come.
Not so fast, Miss Scarlet. I do have a secret or two.
Oh, yeah? Such as?
The game's up, Scarlet. There's no more bullets in that gun.
You think I'll fall for that old trick?
Not a trick. There was 1 shot at Mr. Body in the study, 2 at the shot down the chandelier, 2 at the lounge door, and 1 for the singing telegram.
That's not 6.
1 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1.
No, there was only 1 shot that got the chandelier. That's 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Even if you're right, that'd be 1 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1, and not 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Okay, 1 plus 2 plus... The point is, there's more bullet in here, and guess who's gonna get it?
Doorbell rings. Miss Scarlet turns automatically toward the door. Wadsworth leaps forward, smashes the gun out of her hand, and holds her in a vice-like grip. Mr. Green opens the front door, and several FBI agents and cops burst in, guns in their hands. 3 agents continue to each other. What? Huh? That?
There's a body in there.
Bodies in there. There's more. There's this. There's that.
Where's the chief?
Ah, Wadsworth, well done. I did warn you, my dear. Mr. Hoover is an expert in Armageddon.
Wadsworth, don't hate me for trying to shoot you.
Frankly, Scarlet, I don't give a damn. As I was trying to tell you, there were no bullets left. See? 1 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1.
Yay!
Huzzah!
Banzai!
We did it.
Banzai!
How to get out of here?
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Hi, Hannah!
You guys, thank you.
Thanks for the fun.
The
It was
clue.
awesome.
It was so much fun.
Pause this.
Great.